Hey guys, welcome back to the It's Too Easy podcast. I'm Jake. This is my brother Zach. And if you guys haven't been here for the last 8 weeks, it's just been too easy for us. We got on a huge roll again last week. CFB started pounding some winners in the books, and then kept rolling with the NFL. And on top of that, NBA started off super hot, so we're super excited about the season. But yeah, this week obviously we got more picks for you guys, so we're going to start out with the CFB. Next game is Kansas State and Texas. That's a big game, obviously, huge implications for the title game. I'm loving the under for that game. I'm not sure if Texas' quarterback is back yet, but they have not been as good without him throwing the ball. They have been just as good running the ball, obviously. Their alignment and running back are still very good. But I do think that the defenses are going to keep this game close, so I do think that the under is the play here.
hmm Yeah, I've been sticking with Kansas State, thinking that other teams are going to get upsets. We had Kansas with a big win last week that we had. Loved that with the covering of the 10 as well. Uh, I think Texas is going to lose one of these next couple. I think Quinn Ewers is out another 3 weeks, and I think Kansas State's going to provide a tough matchup. I could see it going either way, but I'm just going to stick with Kansas State getting the points. I believe it's 4.5 right now.
All right, so you're on Kansas State getting the points, and I am on the under for that game. Next game is Ole Miss and Texas A&M. Another game that I'm taking the under. Ole Miss has played a lot of close games against SEC teams that they win by a score or 6 points or whatever it is. So I just feel like even though they have one of the better offenses, Texas A&M's defense has always been pretty good under Jimbo Fisher, and in this game they're going to be able to keep it under. So I'm sticking with the under again. I am leaning Ole Miss money line in this game. But who knows with these SEC games? So I'm just gonna stick with the under.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite plays for the week is Ole Miss money line. I like them -2.5, which is what the line's set at. I think that's a strange line for Ole Miss being at home, also being a ranked top 10 team, because that means they're favored or Texas A&M's favored by half a point to go into Mississippi and win. I think that's very strange. I was trying to find if Quinshawn Judkins or Dart or somebody's out, and I wasn't able to find anything on it. So the line's kind of trappy, but I really want to hammer Ole Miss -2.5.
Yeah, love that. Ole Miss money line -2.5, getting the points or the under. I also love that. Texas A&M's defense has been pretty solid against some of the better teams in the SEC. So I do think that that game is going to go under. Next game is Notre Dame and Clemson. Kind of been waiting all year for this one after the loss that Notre Dame had, or two losses they had earlier in the year to Louisville and Ohio State. I do think that
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be able to get it done here against Clemson. Clemson is, once they lost DJ, have been really struggling on offense, and their running back is obviously really good with Shipley, but he is pretty much the offense himself. So I do think for that reason Notre Dame's going to be able to clamp down on him, and they will win this game. So I'm taking them money line.
Yeah, that's another one I've been saying all year. I thought Notre Dame was going to lose one, and I had them beating Clemson and losing to either SC or Ohio State. Obviously, they smacked SC, and I think SC is a much better opponent than Clemson. The only thing that worries me is Clemson's 4-4, and I am used to them being so good. I can't see them going 4-5, especially at home under Stavo Sweeney.
Yeah, Dabo.
But yeah, the line being 3 is kind of strange, but I'm still going to ride Notre Dame money line -3. I feel like Notre Dame should win by 20. The only way I can see the game being close is if Clemson gets a couple of key takeaways, putting them in good field position.
Yeah, I love that pick. Next is ASU and Utah. Obviously, Utah last week had a pretty rough game against Oregon at home, and then ASU had a decent week a couple weeks ago against Washington, or was that last week? Um,
Last week they beat Washington State.
yeah, last week they beat Washington State, and then 2 weeks ago they almost went to Seattle and won. So they have been playing pretty good ball as of late. For that reason, and for Oregon being able to go in and kick their butt, I am taking the under in this game. It's 40.5. I know it's a pretty low number, but Utah's defense has been pretty solid like the majority of the year, and they are at home again for this game. So I do think that ASU's offense is going to have a really tough time scoring, and when they do, they tend to run the ball. So I expect a lot of time to come off the clock. So I am going to take the under 40.5 for Arizona State and Utah this week.
Do you have the line on that game?
I don't, but I believe it's 6.5 in favor of Utah. Let me double check real quick.
Okay. I was going to say if you're leaning on the under, then I would look at taking Arizona State with the points because they have been putting up a fight with a lot of good teams. Their offense has been rolling, and obviously I love Scadaboo. Came from Sac State, transferred over there.
Ten and a
He's a
half.
beast. But yeah, so 10.5. I would take the 10.5 for Arizona State. If it is going to be under 40, that means they just got to keep it, 25 to 15, and I think they're capable of scoring 15. I do know Utah's got a good defense, but Arizona State just put up 38. I think in their first 6 possessions against Washington State, they had 4 touchdowns, a field goal, and a missed field goal. So if they can continue to move the ball like that, or even half as good as that, they should be able to cover the points against Utah.
Yeah, and even if you're able to get like maybe 13 and a half, I think that's a solid buy there because Utah does tend to win a lot of games in the 10 to 14 range somewhere, within 2 scores, so they're comfortable, but not, they're not the easiest of games. So I do think that this is going to be a good game. If you could buy that to 13 and a half and get a good number there, maybe at like minus 150 or minus 165, I feel like that's a solid buy there for a Utah team at home. But yeah, under 40 and a half feels great. Next game is Mizzou and Georgia. Mizzou has kind of been a shocker of a team this year. Been a lot better on offense than I was expecting, keeping themselves in games with teams like LSU and some of these bigger SEC teams. I do think Georgia's going to win, but I think that they're going to struggle in this game in the first half, like they kind of have throughout the season. Even though these last couple weeks they have started to kind of put it together, I do think that this is going to probably be their toughest game of the year. But I do like Georgia to win this game, so I am taking Georgia money line. Um, so yeah, looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I like Georgia to win. I think Georgia's going to cover 15. Um, I watched Mizzou against LSU, and it was kind of a battle for points. I think it ended up 49-39, something along those lines. But Georgia's defense is insanely good, and Brady Cook often turns the ball over. And so I think that's going to be obvious against Georgia. I think he'll probably have 2 to 3 turnovers at least. That's going to put Georgia in good field position. And then as it is, I think Georgia would dominate the trenches, uh, handing it off, throwing it, whatever. They got going last week, even without Brock Bowers being there. They actually were able to spread the ball a little bit more, and it looked really good. So I do expect Georgia to go out there. This is kind of their big game. If they win this one, they make it to the top 4 guaranteed, assuming they put up a fight in
Win
the
out,
SEC
yeah,
championship game.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I do expect Georgia to go out there and kick some ass.
Yeah, absolutely. Next game, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. That's a big one for their division. Obviously, Oklahoma State's looking to play spoiler and force Oklahoma to lose 2 games in a row now. We called out last week that Oklahoma was kind of the fraud team of the 4, and we were right on. But yeah, I think that they're going to come back and win this game. They have to. It's pretty much a no-brainer. I don't think they're going to have a chance to get back into the top 4 with how weak their schedule has been. But this is a must-win for them in order to get into a decent bowl game or have any sort of chance to get back into the top 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just based off of recent history, Oklahoma continues to beat Oklahoma State. So I'm going to stick with them, even though it is going on the road. It's going to be a tough environment. Obviously, it's their probably the toughest opponent that they're going to face all year, being the
Mm-hmm.
crosstown rival. But yeah, I expect Oklahoma to get the win. I think they'll probably cover the 6 points, but I know Oklahoma State loves to run the ball. Ollie Gordon's got over 1,000 yards, and if they can keep it close, I think it's going to be by running the ball effectively. So I'm interested to see if they do that against Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely. Next game is Cal and Oregon. Obviously, Cal last week gave a good fight to USC at home. Oregon went into Utah and put up a banging on Utah away. This week, the number I don't really like the spread either way, just because Cal's been a team to keep themselves in the game. But I do like the over 59.5. Last week, Cal and SC put up like 99 points or something like that. I think it was ridiculous, something really ridiculous like that. So I expect this to be like maybe like a 42-27 game where Cal gets a couple scores late when Oregon puts their second stringers in. It is at home for Oregon, so I do expect our defense to step up. But I do think that this game is going to be going over the 59.5 for sure.
Do you have the point spread on that as well?
I don't at the moment. I believe it is Oregon by 24.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I was going to say I would take the points for Cal. I do think Oregon's going to win handily, but
Mm-hmm.
24 is a lot of points
Yeah,
for a
it
Cal
really
offense
is.
that they have looked pretty good. Jaden Ott's been running the ball effectively versus pretty much anybody.
Yeah, it's
And then
24 and a half. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's a good buy.
I think Oregon will win, probably cover 14, but 24 is a lot more. So I'm going to take Cal with the plus points.
Yeah, unless Cal starts turning the ball over early in the game, I think they'll be able to keep themselves within 3 scores. So goodbye. Next one, Washington and USC. Obviously, Washington has to continue to win if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. They've been pretty shaky the last couple of weeks, but they have been able to get the W's in the end. So that's all that really matters. For Oregon to have any chance to make it into the playoff and into the Pac-12 championship game, I think they need SC to win this game. If Washington doesn't lose to SC, I don't think they're going to lose in the Pac-12 championship. So it pretty much gets Oregon out of there. But if USC wins this game, I think it gives Oregon a little bit of tape on how to defeat Washington. And I think that if we were to take down USC at home in a couple weeks, that it leaves us open to run the Pac-12 and potentially make it into the CFP, even though we have lost once. So I am hoping SC wins, and for that reason, I'm going to take SC money line in this one, just because I'm a Duck fan. But I think if SC's defense has any sort of a decent game, they have a shot at winning this game. But if their defense plays the same way they've played the entire season, Penix will have 300 yards in the first half, and they'll be up 35-13, and the game will be over. So that's pretty much where I'm leaning on that game.
Yeah, the Trojans can't let it get to 3 scores away because they'll be done.
Yeah.
I do
Or
think
no, it's at
USC is
home.
going to go up. Yeah, but I don't expect USC to lose at home, especially already having 2 losses. They already know they're out of the playoff picture. So now it's just playing spoiler for everybody else. I do think also that Caleb Williams is tired of all the Michael Penix Heisman talk after winning it himself and arguably having a better season than he did last year.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Just with a worse team.
so yeah, just with a worse team, really 2 losses. But I think they ended with that last year, but it didn't matter because of how good he played. So I do expect Caleb to outplay Michael Penix. I do expect USC to get the win. I think it's going to be a shootout. USC's defense can't stop anyone. The over under was at 75 last I saw, so I'm gonna take the over. I mean, Cal just put up 49 on USC's defense, and Washington's a lot better than that. I don't think Washington's going to be able to put up necessarily 50 because that was scoring almost every possession. Um, Especially if they keep it on the ground, they might try and slow it down a little bit just to see whose defense gets tired first.
Yeah.
But I expect a shootout. I expect Caleb Williams to outshine Penix and USC to get the win at home in the Coliseum. This is pretty much their college football playoff, and this might be Caleb's last big game if he can win this one, maybe in Autzen the week after that as well. And really their last shot to even have a chance at the Pac-12 championship as well.
Yep, exactly. This is a must win for them. Luckily, one of their losses against Notre Dame, so it's out of conference. So that's kind of what's keeping them alive right now. So yeah, USC money line. Next game, huge game. Game day is heading over to Alabama for Alabama and LSU. Obviously, LSU lost the game early in the season, and then kind of just been rolling since then. And Alabama also lost a game early in the season, and they've been kind of trying to figure it out offensively. Defensively, Alabama's been great. This is a game where I think LSU is going to win this game. I just think that LSU offensively is so much better than Alabama is that it doesn't matter how good Alabama's defense is, they are going to manage to score more. I think that it's going to be a similar game to the Texas game, to where it's just going to be a frustrating day for Alabama. I think that LSU is going to go up 7, get the ball back, go up 10, and then it's just going to be trying to claw back anything they can. But I am expecting LSU to come away with a win there in Tuscaloosa.
That's originally what I was thinking also, but I've turned away from that. Might be when I was watching Pat McAfee talking with Saban, I kind of was swayed.
Fair.
But this is basically the championship game for Alabama. If they win this, they should win out, which puts them in the SEC championship game. And if they win that, they're in the top 4. Uh, LSU also beat them last year, so this is going to be a revenge game. Their offense has started to get moving a little bit the last couple weeks after starting very slow. And I do love LSU's offense. They're very explosive, so I expect a couple big plays. I also expect a couple turnovers from Jaden Daniels, which helped to give Alabama a real chance to win. I think they're going to need to put the ball in the end zone. If they want to win this one, they can't be kicking a bunch of field goals. Really, it might just come down to turnovers, but I do think Alabama's going to get the ball on the ground. just straight up win the trenches and win the football game.
Right on. All right, so opposite sides there. I got LSU money line, Zach's on Bama money line. First one of the week. Next game, Oregon State and Colorado. Play I'm loving for that game. I'm not going anywhere near the 13 and a half, I think is where the line is right now. But I love the under 62 and a half. It's in Colorado, and Oregon State's a run-heavy team with a good defense. So I think that obviously, again, Shedeur is going to be under a lot of pressure, and he's not going to be able to get the ball away, and he's going to get sacked another 5 to 7 times. So, you know, with that, a lot of time's going to come off the clock. Oregon State's going to run the ball a whole lot, and I just don't expect 62. We're going to not be anywhere near 62. I'm thinking maybe like a 31-17 game, or maybe like a 28-10, 28-14 game in favor of Oregon State. A lot of Oregon State games have been pretty close games, or 1-2 score games in their favor, pretty low scoring. So that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah, I definitely 62 sounds nice. I'm kind of leaning. You said 13 and a half. I'd probably bump it to 14 and a half and take Colorado at home. They haven't really been able to move the football the last couple weeks, playing tougher opponents.
Oregon
State's
State is on a
defense,
revenge game. They did lose to Arizona last week, so
yeah, I think Arizona's pretty good as well.
yeah.
But yeah, bouncing back, I think Oregon State will get the win. But Colorado having 14 points, I think UCLA is a much better team that they just played against, and they
Mm-hmm.
kept it right around 14, even though they did get dominated all game. So this time, if they can even move the football a little bit against Oregon State, I think they should be able to keep it within 14.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would take the under. I'd take the plus 14 and a half if you can get it for Colorado.
Yeah, I'm personally expecting this game to be almost identical to the UCLA game, other than it's just at home for Colorado. I think that Oregon State is going to emulate UCLA almost to the T. Their defense is pretty solid, and their offense runs the crap out of the ball. So I think it's going to just be a similar result. So yeah, love the under 62 there. And the last game is obviously UCLA and Arizona, two teams that have been on the up and up, kind of running under the radar in the Pac-12 this season. Now I
They
think
have.
UCLA is back into the top 25 now. Arizona's kind of sneaking their name back into that conversation. For that game, I love the over 50 and a half. Obviously, UCLA's defense has been better, but Arizona has been putting up a ton of points with Latifi. They've looked really good. I
Mhm.
expect this game to be no different. I think that UCLA is going to have to score the ball to win this game, and so I'm expecting it to go over 50 and a half.
Yeah, I like the teams that run the ball better. So for that reason, I'm going to take UCLA winning it in Arizona. I think it's going to be
Yeah,
tough going on the road. I do expect Arizona to be able to score it still at home. The UCLA defense, man, I think they held Colorado under 150 total yards. Um, but I think the Arizona offense and especially offensive line is going to be able to put up more of a fight. I don't really have a lean on the over under, but I could see it being 27-24 even. So that would be the over, like you said. Uh, but I do think UCLA is going to come out on top.
all right. And yeah, so I'm over 50 and a half. You like UCLA. I'm leaning Arizona money line in that game just because of the way they've been playing in the last few weeks. But I'm not going to end up touching that. I'm sure I'll just stick with the over. I know you have one more game for CFB, which is Old Dominion and Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina looked pretty solid last week without their quarterback. That was a lock of the week for us.
Yep.
Obviously, that was easy pick for us. So talk about a little bit more what you like about that team.
Yeah, so I loved Coastal Carolina last week. I saw the plus 4 and I thought it was a joke being at home underdogs against Marshall, who hasn't looked too good. Like I said, Ali was really their only offense. Outside of him, there wasn't
Yeah.
much there. Coastal Carolina, we took them plus 4.5, and they won by 30. That's with their backup quarterback, the same guy as the backup who's playing this week. I do think Old Dominion's a much better football team than Marshall this year,
Mm-hmm.
especially having the advantage of being at home. The even line is kind of scary to me. But just with how well Coastal looked last week, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to ride with them again and take Coastal at Old Dominion.
Yeah, right on. Love that. Coastal Carolina money line is our last CFB pick for the week. So we kind of transitioned over to the NFL. First pick of the week: the Dolphins and the Chiefs. That is in Germany this week. There's been a lot of speculation about which teams are healthy, which teams are going to have more preparation going into the game. I'm leaning personally the Dolphins. I just think that the speed's going to be too much for the Chiefs this week. And having lost and getting banged up by the Denver Broncos last week, I just think that the Dolphins this is kind of a week for them to kind of get everything in order and start their playoff run. So yeah, I'm leaning Dolphins money line this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think the Chiefs offensively can keep up with the Dolphins. Not just because of their speed, but I've been saying it all year. I don't think the Chiefs are that good. For that reason, we had the Broncos last week, and the Broncos beat them
Yeah.
by 10 or 11 or whatever it was. I do think this is going to be a very good matchup because Patrick Mahomes is going to put on a show for all the people coming to see him in Europe. Uh, I also expect Tyreek to do the same, playing against his former team. I don't think he's going to be stopped, and both teams have a bye the following week to get rest after. I know the teams that ran the ball super well in London were able to win. I expect the same to be true for this game, and I know the Dolphins have a better run game. It's been worse without A Chain, but even getting a screen pass to Tyreek is basically a run. And if he's running with it, you can't catch him. So for that reason alone, I'm going to take the Dolphins money line.
Yeah, and their coach, what's his name, Mike McDaniel, he always finds ways to get the balls into his receivers' hands, whether it be 5 yard passes, 15 yard passes, or a jet sweep. So I think that for that reason, they're just going to be able to run all over the Chiefs, spread them over the field, and their defense is going to be able to kind of hone in on Mahomes, get a couple of interceptions or turnovers, whether it be a sack fumble or a pick six or something, and that's just going to swing everything in their way. So, yeah, loving the Dolphins money line in Germany. Next game is the Falcons and the Vikings. Obviously, the Vikings just lost Kirk for the season to an Achilles injury. Falcons just lost a tough one to the Saints. Um, I think the Falcons is a bounce back game for them. Their defense has been solid this season, and Ritter's kind of starting to find his form. So I do like them against the Vikings here, who just picked up Josh Dobbs, and he's going to be, doing the most basic plays, just trying to get, himself into the system.
Yeah, well, if they had Josh Dobbs, I would probably take the Vikings on the money line. But they're not playing him. They're playing Jaron Hall, last I saw.
Okay.
Uh, and so, with that being the case, I'm gonna take the Falcons, probably money line, probably -3. I believe the line moved to 4 after the trade for Dobbs. So we'll see how that plays out. If Dobbs goes in, I could definitely see the Vikings going in there and getting a win because he looked very good all year for the Cardinals. So I think he could do the same with the Vikings. If it's Jaron Hall, I expect him to have a couple turnovers, and the Falcons should be able to cover on the other side if that's who plays against him.
Yeah, I love Young Hoku over 1.5 field goals in that game if you can get it. I think that Vikings defense has been better in the red zone the last couple weeks, and you know Ritter's been good about getting the ball inside the 40, and then Young Ho has been doing Young Ho things. So I expect him to get over a field goal and a half in that game. Next game on the list, Browns and the Cardinals. Cardinals have been crap. I don't know if they're getting Kyler back this week. I don't think they are. I think they're starting a third stringer or fourth stringer, and I
Clayton
don't.
Tune.
Yeah, I don't think they have much hope. So Browns, obviously, their defense is gonna probably get. I'm probably gonna get some sort of pick for their defense to score a touchdown. But I think that they're gonna blow them out. So I'm taking Browns money line. Obviously, you can buy the points. I just think it's against the Cardinals team that's been in the money in plus points for most weeks. I think that they're gonna be able to somehow keep themselves in this game. So Browns money line for me.
Okay. Yeah, I like the Browns. I think they're going to win the game. I'm not sure if Kyler's going to play or not. I believe they named Clayton Tune the starter unless Kyler is
Yes.
ready. So
Yeah.
I think they said that's going to be a game time decision. Uh, it is a 7 point line. Leaning on the Browns for that. If it's Clayton Tune, yeah, I think the Browns defense is going to annihilate him and they cover easily. If it's Kyler, I kind of am still leaning that they cover, but I do think Kyler's going to come back, and when he is healthy, I think he's going to look pretty good.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And then we also have the Rams and the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, that one's going to come down to whether or not Stafford plays. I think if Stafford plays, I'm taking the Rams money line. But other than that, I'm not going to touch the game just because of how shaky the Packers have been. Um, so yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, if Stafford plays, I'm taking the Rams. If Stafford doesn't, I'm taking the Packers. I don't think Ripien's that good. I think Jordan Love's better than him. I think the Packers D is pretty solid, and they just need to learn how to score in the first half. I think they have under 20 points in the first half all season, but they're averaging 17 for the second halves. So just assuming that, maybe they'll get 20 points. And if Ripien's playing, I don't see the Rams getting over 20.
Yeah, absolutely. Next game, I don't have much to say about this one. I'm just taking the Saints money line against the Bears. I don't think there's much to say other than the Saints are the better team. So Saints money line against the Bears.
Yep, I like it -6. They'll win
Yep.
by a touchdown. So yeah,
But, so yeah, and then Ravens against the Seahawks. Ravens, I think, are 3.5 point favorites, maybe four.
six and a
I'm
half.
6.5 now. Okay, wow. I'm taking the money line. I think that the Seahawks. This is the game where they're going to lose, and the Niners are going to win this week, and they don't play this week. Niners don't play this week, but they'll take the first place spot back next week. I think the Seahawks are a good team, but I just think that the Ravens right now with Lamar are on an absolute roll, and I think that your preseason pick for the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl is looking very, very good because the AFC has been more shaky than I would have expected. So I do think the Ravens money line in this game is going to be where it's at. So what do you think?
Yeah, when I originally had them, I had them winning all but I think two or three or four games. This is definitely one of the ones I had the Ravens winning, and I don't love the game this week, so I'm leaning on bumping it to 7 or 7.5 of the Seahawks and taking it on that side. I do think the Ravens are going to win the football game. I don't love it, so I'd rather just play it safe and take the points for the Seahawks this week.
Right on. And then Texans and Bucks, I know is one of your favorite picks of this week because you're looking for Baker to have a bounce back week, and the Texans just lost to the Panthers, who were 0 for before. So talk a little bit more about why you love Baker.
Yeah, the Bucks defense has looked great. The offense for the Bucks has been a little shakier. I do think they're going to bounce back. They're also getting 3 or 3.5, and I think the hype with the Texans and CJ Stroud's kind of over. Um, their offense didn't do much against the Panthers. Like I said last week, Panthers are going to go out and get their win. That's another thing I'm interested in this week is the Panthers having another chance. But the Bucks are really just a better team, I think, than the Texans. The Texans are young and still developing, and I think the Bucks defense is going to be too much for C.J. Stroud, and I do think Baker's going to be able to run against the. I think he's going to throw it all over the Texans defense.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to tell for me just personally because I was kind of hyped up on CJ Stroud at the beginning of the season. Obviously, last week was kind of tough, but there were a couple plays and calls that didn't go their way that I thought could have gone their way. Um, but I am leaning on the under in this game. I think that after the 15-13 last week, obviously this is going to be a defensive heavy game again. And I do think that eventually Baker's just going to be able to get going and it'll eventually be a blowout. So I'm looking for maybe like 24-3 or 24-10, 27-10, something like that, and to hit the under wherever it may be. Next game is the Colts and the Panthers. Obviously, the Panthers, like we talked about, got their first dub. Colts, I think, lost by 1 point, or maybe that was 2 weeks ago where they lost by 1 point. Then last week they had another tough loss. Um, I'm taking the money line this week against the Panthers. I think that Gardner's going to have a bounce back game. Obviously, everybody's been giving him a lot of flack about not being, starting QB number one, but I think that he has come in, done a pretty good job, and now getting Jonathan Taylor back, they're kind of slowly starting to get back into their flow of their offense. So I think that, just being able to get back into some sort of rhythm will be able to get the job done against the Panthers. So that's why I'm taking the Colts.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the safe play. For some reason, I'm sticking with the Panthers points. It's only 3. I don't love it. Uh, if you don't like it, don't touch it. You could always live bet it. If the
Yeah.
Colts go up early, you can get extra points for the Panthers, in which case, if it got to like 8, 10, I'd probably take that. Uh, the Colts should win. For some reason, I'm feeling the Panthers again, so I'm just going to probably not touch it or live bet it myself.
Yeah, I feel like that's two teams that are just very volatile, so that'll probably end up being a stay away game. But I am leaning the Colts so far. Raiders and Giants, that two terrible teams that are really tough to watch. Giants obviously blew it against the Jets with 14 seconds left or whatever, 18 seconds. They went down the field in 50 yards. It was ridiculous, and then obviously pooped their pants in overtime. Um, but I'm expecting that game to go under again. Both those teams are going to try to run the ball with Josh Jacobs and Saquon, and neither of them are going to get anywhere because the front fours are going to be all over the place with Crosby and Kayvon. So I'm taking the under in that game. I don't know exactly where it's at, but I hope that number is not too low already.
I think I saw it at 41, and I still like the under on that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do think,
Anything over 40, I'm okay with.
yeah, I do think the Raiders are going to win. I think Aiden O'Connell is going to get a chance. I think he's going to play well. He'll probably have a turnover or two because he's young, trying to figure out the speed of the professional defenses, but I do think it's going to be enough for the Raiders to bounce back, having fired everybody,
Yeah.
and now getting the ball back to Devontae, like your best playmaker, one of the best players in the NFL. Get it to him. I think Aiden's going to do that, and they're going to win the game.
Yep, right on. Next game is the Eagles and the Cowboys. Huge divisional game for first seed in the division. Eagles are favorites, I believe, right now by 2.5 or 3. I'm not sure if that number will jump, but the Cowboys have looked pretty shaky against good teams. The Eagles have found ways to win games that it looks like they shouldn't win. Um, since the Cowboys have won the last couple weeks, I feel like this could be a week where they slow down, but the boys have been pretty fired up. So I think I'm going to stay away. But if I did have a lean, I would lean the Eagles money line, just because their O line has been so good for the past 3 to 5 seasons, and they're continuing to just win. And clearly, that's their recipe to success. So as long as they can continue to bully up front with the O line, I feel like the Eagles are a pretty tough team to bet against.
Yeah, I'm going to probably live bet this game as well. I could see Sirianni getting the ball on the ground early, in which case the Cowboys can't really stop the run. So if they go down and score again, you can get the Cowboys +6, +8, somewhere in that range, and I'd take that. I do kind of feel like the Cowboys have a chance at winning this one. Dak's 3-0 in his last 3 against Philly, averaging 44 points a game. Um, Jalen's looked a little banged up, and he's turned it over quite a bit this year. Like you said, they've barely been pulling off wins, but they've been getting wins.
Yeah.
If they continue to turn it over and throw it, I think if they run it, it's going to benefit them with a chance to win easier. If they start to throw it and Jalen does turn it over a couple times, I do think that gives the Cowboys a real good chance to win. Their defense has been fired up. Their offense has been playing well the last couple weeks, and they're finally rolling. So I think I'm going to stick with Cowboys getting the points this week, but I would probably wait to live bet it and get a little more than 3.
Yeah, I think if you can buy even a 3.5, then you'll probably get solid numbers before the game starts. Bengals and Bills, huge AFC rivalry game. Both those teams obviously are going to be in the playoffs, I think. Bengals are on a roll, just beat the Niners by 2 scores, which is pretty incredible. And then the Bills obviously have been on a roll, finding ways to win games. Josh Allen's had a little bit of an off year, but he's finally starting to kind of find his receivers again. So I am thinking for this game, just the way the Bengals are playing, I think they're the better team right now. I think that Joe Burrow, after playing a Niners team that's very prepared on defense, is going to be able to get it done against the Bills defense. I am thinking that that game is going to be a pretty tight one with it being in the cold. I think it's in Buffalo. But
It's in
I'm
Cincy, I
leaning.
think.
Oh, is it in Cincy? Okay. Well, either way, I think it's going to be a cold game, November game. So I think that Joe Burrow is going to play better than Josh Allen in the cold. So I'm leaning Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm excited for this matchup because we didn't get to see a whole game last year with everything going on with Damar Hamlin in the
Yeah.
same Bengals-Bills matchup that we were expecting. The Bills were down early in that one at home.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bengals offense is just too good right now for a beat-up Bills defense. They've been missing Milano and linebacker, Tre'Davious White at corner. I do like the addition they got of Rasul Douglas at the trade deadline, uh, but with the beat up linebacker position that the Niners had last week, the Bengals were able to move the ball effectively, and I think they're going to do the same thing against the Bills. I do expect a higher scoring game. If the Bengals put up 30 again, I could see the Bills keeping it close and putting up at least 20, 24, but I think the Bengals will cover the 3 points.
Yeah, I think 30-24 is about right. Depending on the weather in the game, I think that'll have a lot to say on the over-under, but I am leaning the Bengals money line, and that's also a preview to my AFC Championship matchup that I have for this season that I had before the season. So I am looking forward to that matchup. I think it's going to say a lot about those two teams and about the whole division. So yeah, cool. AFC is looking cool. Chargers and Jets is the last game. Leaning the Chargers money line. Jets obviously got a nice win last week against the Giants that they probably shouldn't have. But I just don't think the Jets are going to have enough offensive firepower to do anything against the Chargers. Chargers have spurts where they look incredible on defense, and then the next game they give up like 500, 600 yards, and it's like, okay, which team am I watching? But I think this is going to be one of those games that they're just going to be a lot better a team completely. If the Jets had Rodgers, I think this is a really close game, but I just think with Zach Wilson, there's going to be a lot of 3-and-outs, and Chargers going to have a lot more opportunity with the ball. So that's why I'm taking the money line.
Yeah, and last week we talked about the Chargers finally getting rolling against the Bears, which
Yeah,
they did. I expect that to continue over against the Jets. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. The over under set at 40. I'm taking the over on that.
love that.
I think the Chargers easily put up 24. I know it's a good defense for the Jets, but I think the momentum's going with the Chargers. They got to get back to 500, and that would put both teams, I think, at 4-4 if the Chargers win this, and they're going to be competing for a wild card. I do think the Chargers are the better team with Zach Wilson at QB right now. Um, Come playoffs, if it were the same matchups, I'd probably take the Jets. But this week, I'm going to take the Chargers.
Yep, right on. I think that's going to wrap it up for NFL. Just touching on a couple UFC picks for the weekend. We are back. It's in Brazil this weekend, so a lot of Brazilian fighters on the card. I am going to be taking a couple of them to win. Vitor Petrino to win is minus 250. I love him in this fight. He's at home in front of his fans, so obviously he's going to be wanting this fight more than ever. Um, Both the Bonfim brothers are fighting this weekend. They at least the younger brother recently lost Ismail, and I think he's going to be looking for a bounce back win. They got him matched up against a super old guy in Vince Pichel, so I'm expecting him to take it in under 1.5 rounds. I think you can get that somewhere around 250-ish, but it might go up a little bit since I had picked it. And then the last pick I have on the card is Almeida to win. I think that he's going to handle Derek Lewis in under 1.5 rounds. That's the main event on the card. He's just all around a lot better a fighter. Derek Lewis is a power puncher. He's going to be able to find his way around it and submit him or get him on the ground, whatever, one way or another. He's going to find a way to finish Derek Lewis in under 1.5 rounds. So, yep, that's my last pick for UFC. And then let's kind of segue over to your NBA picks because obviously last week we got off to a hot start. So yeah, talk a little bit about your NBA picks for this weekend.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go in like game by game. I'll be giving those out on the Instagram as the week goes on. Two games I look forward to seeing is the Mavs. Luka's looking like the MVP so far. He's been incredible. The Mavs are 4-0. Let's go Mavs. I do think that they're going into Denver. I'm not sure with this whole in-season play-in tournament. I know it's the first day of that. And I do think the Mavs are more of a scary team in like a one and done situation. I think it's like a seasonal couple games that they're going to have to play. But going into Denver, Denver always wins at home. They just had an ugly loss to the Timberwolves, so I think they're going to bounce back. And then they have the Bulls at home again this weekend. So those are two games I'm looking forward to seeing. The Grizzlies also are trying to find their way. They're 0-5. They need to stay afloat, so I think they're going to bounce back this weekend and get a big win. Obviously, no Steven Adams this year hurts. Uh, they lost Dylan Brooks. They lost Tyus Jones. Jaw's not there right now.
Yeah,
They're
he's
trying
been
to find an
suspended.
identity, but they've also played some tough games.
Yeah,
So I do expect the Grizzlies to bounce back. They need to stay afloat really to make a run at the playoffs. Jaw's out 25 games, so 20 more. And if they're 0-25, then they're screwed to start the year. Um, Man, LeBron looked good last night against the Clippers. Kawhi looked phenomenal. PG looked phenomenal. Russ was balling. I'm interested to see how Harden gets involved. I think that's going to be a lot of taking the ball out of Russ's hands, which might hurt. So I can maybe see another movement, whether it be PG or Kawhi throughout the season.
yeah. I think that
Um,
one of those guys is going to have to go because there's just too many stars over there now. Everybody's going to be wanting the ball every possession. It's just not going to work out. So that's kind of how I'm thinking it's
yeah,
going to go for the Clippers.
it's either that or they're going to find a way. All four are from
Yeah,
the LA, San Diego area, so they're all home, and I think they want to be there. And I do think Russ loved playing with PG. Russ obviously continues to love playing with Harden. And
they
then
all three
Kawhi
played together
is
in
all
Oklahoma City. So
yeah, and Kawhi's home, and I don't think he's going anywhere. He's the only one on that team that's won a chip, and I
yeah,
think Ballmer understands that. So yeah, we'll see how that goes as the season moves on. Bucks have looked shaky. Like I said, Dame doesn't play defense. I think that they're going to end up regretting having him over Drew. Meanwhile, the Celtics look phenomenal, and then the Magic look good. They're 2-2, but they look good.
hmm
Keep an eye on that. I know the Heat and Hawks have started slow as well, but it's still plus 800 for the Magic to win the division. That's something I love throughout the season. I think the Magic have a good, fun, young core. They got 7 guys putting up 13 and a half points a game or more, moving the ball well. It's hard to stop them. But yeah, just look for the plays on Instagram throughout the week. Doing a lot of player props, doing a lot of game predictions. We've been hot so far. So yeah, give it a follow on Instagram, Lenny Locks. Give us a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you guys want to hear if you want to join the show. And otherwise, we will see you guys next time.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Talk soon.